Sex workers of Reddit, what's the weirdest kink a customer has asked you to fulfill? I was a cab driver for several years. Night shift, ghetto. Loved that job. I had a regular escort who always requested me, probably because I didn't ask her for anything whilst driving her to her next job. She'd go up into an apartment, house, or hotel room and have me wait, sometimes a full hour, but rarely over 15 minutes. I never argued because waiting and a return trip keeps the meter running longer. One time she came down after maybe 10 minutes. She looked half amused and half terrified. She said that the guy had her put on a muumuu and an old lady wig, then yell at him while he took a shit and he jacked off. Real weird. Freud would have something to say about that guy, no doubt. Nothing particularly exciting, to be honest. Kind of disappointing. Slightly more interesting requests included: 1. Pretending to be married and having to be quiet so we didn't wake the kids. 2. 3. Pretending to be a cat and meowing, crawling around and drinking out of a bowl on the floor. 4. Wearing pantyhose and being stretched and put into various yoga-type poses while he sniffed me. Met more interesting folk in my day job, I think. I feel obliged to mention the human toilet, though. I never met him, but some of the other girls said there was a guy who would pay girls to poo in his mouth. Apparently they would line up outside his room to do it. Not judging, but I don't think that I could ever do that. I love the lack of kink shaming here. Also, not a sex worker, but ex-military. Some guys aren't too shy about sharing even the most personal shit. One of my buddies had a kink with those horse girls that actually pretend to be horses. I mean, they gallop around on all four and jump over the obstacles. The whole 9 yards. He grew up on a ranch too. Said, what's wrong with combining the best of both worlds? That sentence raises more questions than he'll ever need answered. Not a sex worker personally, but I used to manage and bartend at gentlemen's clubs many moons ago. One night while I was tending the bar, one of the girls comes down to my bar, and asks me for an empty beer mug. I give it to her. She runs off to the bathroom, then comes back out with it, full of urine. She then runs off to her customer, mug full of yellow liquid in hand. A bit later, she comes back with the mug now empty. Tries to give it back to me, and I tell her to throw it away. She does so, then proceeds to tell me that a customer paid her $300 for her to pee in that mug, and then he wanted her to watch him drink it, which she did. Beyond that, I saw guys come in, pay girls to clean mirrors and tables in the club, and they simply watched. Though a few would even get up and help them with the cleaning they were paying them for. One guy would walk in, talk smack to every girl he could, and when one would finally get angry enough to slap him, he would pay them $100 on the spot. FYI, this dude was about 80 years old. Some guys would even come in at the start of a shift, would bring panties with them, and ask a few girls to wear the panties all day. They would then later show up at the end of the shift, and pay the girls $100 and retrieve the used and worn panties. A lot of weird and oddball fetishes out there, but to each their own. All I could think about reading this is thank you for telling her to throw the mug away. I once attempted to get into selling feet pics many years ago. This one guy messaged me and said he'd give me $200 if I was able to track down his identity in 30 minutes based off of a few clues he'd given me. He told me his state and job, and some surrounding area clues. Wasn't able to find him. Guess I'm not the next Sherlock Holmes. He was very heavily implying to me that he wanted to be humiliated to people he knew in real life and wanted me to have this power over him that I knew his real identity and could out him on his fetishes. A customer had a fishing fetish. Got fisher outfits for some girls like a raincoat or some shit and brought a fishing rod, boots and all, and the girls had to act like they were fishing him while he was laying on the floor and moved like a fish. Craziest shit I heard, but whatever floats their boat, I guess. Cammed for a bit. Kinks I disliked the most, and unfortunately one of the most common to encounter, were the doms, who strolled into the chat already talking down to me, ordering me around and calling me pet names right off the bat, and then trying to keep that roleplay going during pay and kink negotiation, as if treating me like a sub would get them a better price and more access to my body. Asswads. Even the rape fantasy folks were more courteous about getting consent. Weirdest kink though, was contacted by a couple different guys who wanted me to close-up record myself farting into a jar and capturing it, and then mail them the fart jar. I didn't realize fart jars were in such demand. Another guy wanted me to record myself in my car fully clothed, mind you, as if it was a normal day with my seatbelt on. He was very adamant about car safety. The request was to pretend like my car was a stick shift that had just broken down, and I didn't understand how they worked. He wanted me to jiggle the shifter, bounce in place, fiddle with controls and shake the steering wheel and grumble at the car as if frustrated for a few minutes, and then reach over and start searching through my car's manual and reading aloud the terms as if very confused, and aloud wishing that I had a boyfriend who could help me. I got paid $200 for about 10 minutes of pretending to be confused while sitting in my car. Didn't even have to show a tit. He was very sweet and patient about the whole thing. 10 out of 10 would film again. Pro tip to y'all kinky people: respecting boundaries and clear communication will get many camgirls to do some truly wild shit. I think I might qualify as a one-time sex worker. One night, after riding the subway home from work, a guy followed me off the train and offered to buy the shoes off my feet. He stammered through some nonsense about being a sneaker collector and paid me $450 in cash for my old, sweaty canvas Vans. Totally worth the 2-block walk home in my socks. Had a roommate in college 2000s who did private adult videos by request only, basically expensive personalized video porn. She came home pretty bummed one day and I asked what was up. She said she had been paid $500 to put on an adult diaper and comically large baby bonnet and walk otherwise naked around a local college green space. The whole video was her walking around with her fingers in her mouth acting like a confused adult baby. At the end she was told to pee in the diaper and show the camera. When she thought she was done, the director asked if she wanted to poo in the diaper for $1,500 instead of $500. Saying the client asked if it was possible, she declined immediately and the director was, I guess, okay with it. She was bummed she missed out on making an extra $1,000 because she had pooped before going to work. We both laughed so hard. What a ridiculous thought. Darn. If only I hadn't pooped before work, I'd be making some real money. Not one myself, but I knew a reporter who had done a story on the infamous red light area of Mumbai. One of the stories that stuck with all of us is of this one guy who'd turn up at one specific date every month with a duffel bag. Now you'd think he'd bring kinky devices with him to use on the sex worker, but instead, he'd bring a full set of traditional Indian wedding attire. The sex worker told the reporter that this specific customer would pay her whatever she asked, as long as she'd wear the wedding clothes. He would respectfully wait outside the room till she changed and then he would make her sit on the bed. He would pull up a chair, sit in front of her, and just look at her and weep. For 2 hours straight. Then he'd leave, without laying as much as a finger on her. Turns out, he had lost his wife to some freak accident hours after they got married and it messed with him big time. One of the saddest stories I've heard, and it makes my heart ache immensely whenever I recount it. Not super crazy, but I had a guy approach me through Reddit and ask just to be able to give me money with no strings attached. There was a couple-month period during which he would gradually send me money in multiple $15 payments spread throughout the day. Sometimes we'd text too. Sometimes we wouldn't message for a week, but he'd still send me money and quietly wait until I felt like talking. He liked when I ignored him, and if we talked it turned him on when I was mean. He ended up giving me about $1,500 without him ever asking for so much as a photo. Man, if anyone wants to do that with me, I'm willing AF. I was paid $200 to kick a customer in the balls till he came. Only took about 4 times to make him come. Did it a few times. He even paid me $500 when I went out clubbing to do it in a corner of the club. I'm not a sex worker, but was the GM of a strip club in Atlanta for 12 years. We had this guy come in every Wednesday with a McDonald's bag and go straight to VIP with the same girl every time. This wasn't ever odd to me as we allowed you to bring your own food and even order food while you were there. We had a free buffet during the day and ran the kitchen at night, so it wasn't odd for customers wanting to order out or bring in their own food. The owner did not mind it during the day as it left more free buffet food for the dancers and other customers. One Wednesday I was in the back talking with the dancers, and the dancer that went into VIP with the same guy was there when the waitress comes in and says he had arrived and she needed to head to VIP room 2 ASAP. She laughed and told her to hold on, she had to get her big heels out of her locker. The other girls started to laugh and one said she was jealous of the easy money the other girl was about to acquire. Curiosity got the best of me and I asked her what made the money so easy. She then proceeds to tell me that this guy stops at McDonald's before he comes and gets a quarter pounder with cheese, then puts it in a Ziploc bag, and goes to VIP. Her only job while in VIP was to step on the bagged quarter pounder with one heel so it mushed it, and with her other foot to step on the dude's nuts and slap him a bit. She said it was the easiest and funnest $200 she made and looked forward to every Wednesday. Put on her big heels and went to go step on this dude's hamburger and nuts. I've been told a lot of stories by the dancers and walked in on quite a few interesting scenes in VIP, but this one always stood out to me. And if someone ever asks about the weird things I have seen in my time as a GM of a strip club, this is the story I always tell. A client pays me to teach him how to blow his nose properly, making sure to say key phrases like blow it clear. Another one set up a fantasy scenario where I receive an expensive vibrator in the mail, but when I open it, discover a tiny man that's stuck in it. He said what you don't know is that man was a factory worker that got stuck in the vibrator making it. I was obviously confused where he wanted me to go with this, but suggested I should try using the vibrator with the man attached. Nope. The client replied, I can't come unless you destroy it.